Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, irrespective of wherever you are coming in from any part of the world. My name is Yomi Banner. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. We plan to have an exciting time, and I'm very sure you're going to learn a lot of things. Today, we are going to be having a lot of people joining us on Facebook, on Instagram, some from on YouTube. And more often, we're going to have a lot of people that are joining us, going to be joining us via Zoom. The topic we decided to work with as a topic that we know it's actually very important for anyone running their own business to focus on, and that is the customer, And this morning we have with us three gentlemen who will be sharing some insight with us on how we're going to make this happen in 2021. I mean, looking at the pandemic, the fear of is it going to work or not is what the problem is. A lot of us are actually so fearful, and the question we're asking ourselves, with this pandemic, can I scale through 2021? If I can't, will my business scale to 2021? I'll show you as a person will be able to scale through by God's grace. And for your business, I'm very I'll be sharing. I'm very sure that you're going to succeed. Before we commence, I'd like to just drop some rules that we must abide with. Number one, please ensure your system, your phone, or whatever gadget you're using is muted. Two, there will be a question and answer session, but while we are trying to ensure we maximize time, because we want to make sure we don't spend more than 1 hour, 30 minutes having this session, please drop your questions on the page and we will pick it up. And after each of the presenters finish the session, you would be privileged to ask your question, not directly, but we will read the question out and we'll ensure we attend to all questions that will be asked. Once again, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. It's going to be an exciting time. This morning, we have Carlos Wenderly, we have Michael Stewart, and we have Mr. Kolawole Ayeye. Shortly, they're going to be coming up, but I'd just like to say a few things about these gentlemen. But before we commence, let me quickly share some thought with you. Inside. Right, just some each here. And what challenge we have in Africa is, and it's not peculiar to Africa, I think it's every part of the world. We business owners assume that we're doing customers a favor, and as such, maybe that used to be the case where you see the bee running after the flower to get the honey, and so to say. But nowadays, what we have running is a situation whereby you have to take your flower to where the bees are for you to be able to get the right thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say to you that there's a paradigm shift now. You have to live for the customer if you want to remain in business. What do I say? You have to live for the customer if you want to remain in business. And the only reason why you're sure or you will succeed to have your business move from one year to another and make it a transgenerational business is if and only if you put the customer at the center of your business. So I'm just going to be sharing a video with us, and this video is going to take some insight. I think we're having some technical issue around that. The video talks about some fundamentals that is important if you must succeed in business. So while we're waiting for the video to be played, I'm just going to call on Carlos Wenderly, who is going to be sharing with us some insight around customer centrism and how it would help us to succeed in business. A short biography of Carlos Wenderly. Carlos has been in business and retail management in almost part of every part of the world. Carlos had worked in Africa, worked in Asia, worked in Europe, and part of America. Maybe I'd like to say that Carlos was formerly a military person in the U.S. Army, and so he has some insight as to how to manage customers, so to say. I'm very sure that after the session with Carlos is going to be an experience, and Carlos is going to be working together with Michael, who is also one of our speakers today. Carlos and Michael actually own the Smarter Way business in UK, and they're going to be sharing some insight with us. Okay, so while we're doing this, I'll quickly just share the video with us, and then we'll move on. I think it's ready now. All right. Okay, so Carlos Wendley, over to you now.
Okay, thank you very much, Bernard. Just one correction. I was not in the U.S. Army. I was in the Brazilian Army, okay?
Oh,
yeah. I will share with you guys a presentation that we have presented in last June, and you're going to ask me why, and Michael and myself are doing that is because we were asked to do this right in the middle of the virus wave and just starting to, to impact the world. We start this presentation in March and we start to present it in April. We have done 3 presentations of it in Nigeria. So it's going to be good for us to do an analysis of what has changed, what we really know now, and what really matters for you to open a company, to launch new propositions or products, or even renew ones. I think you're going to see after we talk that we normally start from the wrong end, and Michael will make sure that we discuss that. So I just want to, before I pass a word for Michael, to let us think about this. What we have seen from February to April last year was probably one of the worst black swans we had seen in the market in the last 30 years or 40 years. What is a black swan? A black swan is an event that affects the markets that no one can predict. So we saw the stock markets around the world in 2 weeks dropping 40%. And since then, some companies have never recovered. Others had made a fortune, and I will talk about that. So we're going to be talking also about the new dynamics in the economy, how that affect the small, medium-sized business, and what has not changed. We do see advantages in Nigeria for small and medium-sized business compared to other parts of the world. We'll discuss that, and we'll discuss what we see as excuse me? We're going to be discussing what we see the most important thing in regard of when you open a company, when you're trying to grow it or create new products or propositions. So just a little bit about me. I know Bernard did a first presentation, but I have been around for 37, 38 years. I have worked in the National Bank of Development. I have worked for HSBC for many years. I was in charge of the European as well as the Latin American business of the company. I have worked for Gillette Corporation in 3 countries. I worked for the US, I work in Brazil, and I work in Chile. Actually, I have lived already in 7 countries and managed more than 30 countries in my career. My last job as an executive, I was 5 years in Nigeria. I was the head of retail for Union Bank of Nigeria, doing the transformation of an analog branch-based bank to a full digital bank, customer-centric. And then when I left it, I found a Smarter Way with Michael, which is part of what I do today. I'm a member of many startups, boards, and executive committees around the world. So I'll pass that to Michael now.
Okay, thank you, Carlos, and good morning or good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Michael, and like Carlos, I've got 25 years actually in the banking sector now, working amongst global, local, and digital banks. I started working in customer service and moved to customer experience, and then did some development of propositions, looking at innovation and development of customer propositions. I'd tell you that critically, the foundation of the work that I've done is around data and segmentation of customers and insight to understand the needs and desires of customers. And if I've learned one thing through my time in banking and in business, it's that relationship built from understanding and empathy is the one thing that, when aligned with your people and your brand, brings longevity to business and brings long-term value. And if anything, I would say that starting with the customer, as Benito said at the beginning, is definitely the smarter way to do business.
So last December, actually December 2019, I have launched a book in Lagos. It's about customer centricity. It's in the Amazon, available both, digital and as a paperback book. And this is the foundation for the consulting that Michael and I have founded in the UK. If you ask me last February 2019, actually 2020, how I see the world, I would see a brighter future for us. The only thing that was bothering the market was mainly the trade war between China and America. But other than that, everything was fine. Then February came and we saw many clouds. And I don't think that anyone have imagined what could have happened in that moment. And that affects some topics that I will cover them, and I will be sharing the opinions on Michael on them also. So the first thing we notice is the liquidity issue. Suddenly people are forced to shut down factories, shut down stores, shut down service companies. And the question there was how they're going to survive. How they're going to survive without having the daily revenue. Many countries start massive helping programs, which made a lot of small business and medium-sized companies survive around the world. But that was not enough. I'm right now in Spain, and I can tell you that when I walk in the main streets in Madrid, out of 5 shops, 1 at least has closed forever. I see the same thing in Brazil when I walk in the main cities down there. So despite of all the effort from the governments to provide some support with preferential rates, loans, and even money for the population to be able to consume, that was not enough to save the small and medium-sized companies and big companies. We see airlines being broken as we speak, ocean liners, mainly leisure hotel chains and things like that, suffering a lot. Also, what we saw and we see today is that our mobility has been compromised dearly. You cannot go everywhere. I'm only in Spain because I have a residence card, otherwise I wouldn't be able to come to Spain. You have to stay in your country. Even when you travel, the sanitary requirements are huge. I was discussing with Michael that I came to Spain with health reports, PCR tests that are valid for 24 hours, all kinds of nonsense, but necessary for you to travel safe. Supply chain had a problem because you stop factories for 3 to 4 months. So when you restart them, it takes time for them to go back to the 100% production. We still have, despite of many manufacturing companies doing great now, they lack raw materials, they lack parts. And that is a reality that we are seeing as we speak. So consumption also changed. A lot of people moved to basic consumption. Of course, you're always going to have a part of the population that are not going to be affected, but the majority of the normal human beings are. Social interaction also changed. We are talking about being 1.5 meters, 2 meters away, which in some cases I see the almost close to hypocrisy because you go to the airport, you stay in a queue 2 meters from each other, but then you go to the plane, everybody's together. Same thing I can see in Nigeria when you go to a Danfu or to a Keke Marwa, or you are in the big market. So we also have our freedom being affected. But there are 2 things that we are just starting to realize, and we're starting to see the effects: inflation and devaluation. Inflation is a phenomena that will be affecting the whole world probably now or in the next 2 or 3 years because of the amount of money being printed by all the big countries around the world, the European community, United States, Brazil. Everybody has been pumping money in order to help the population and the business. Countries like Nigeria, though, are facing major devaluation, which causes also inflation. Why is that? Nigeria has a huge dependence on oil. We all know that the price in oil dropped and the consumption also dropped. So the amount of hard currency in the country right now is scarce, and that makes that the naira devalues, and at the same time, a lot of key products that are imported become more expensive, and we're going to have to discuss that as we go further, because if you understand your customer, you understand who you deal with, you can deal with inflation in a much better way than your competitors. Michael, you want to add anything?
The only thing I'd say, Carlos, is just in terms of the future and how do we see that? So this is, and what you've described is very much from a business perspective. From a customer perspective, I think we'll see rapid change, and customers will be living in a world, and businesses will be living in a world where rules are changing, and the ability to adapt for both customers and businesses is essential. I think there'll be a shift from what was globalization for the last decade or so into much more of a local focus and localization, if that's the right word. And I also think that some of the problems in the world from a consumer's perspective and a customer's perspective, we'll see that feeling of a need for ethical values and a consciousness, and people will want to make an informed decision. And I also think that people will change. We will learn from the East. The West will learn from the East in terms of respect for generation and respect for the environment around them. But the clouds I would add in from a customer perspective, a feeling of remoteness and anxiety. And that's not only driven by the pandemic. I think it's driven by the increase in digital interaction, which, whilst it connects people much more, it also drives a remoteness and that anxiety. And what you talked about, the aeroplanes and the travel, Carlos, I think absolutely that inconsistency of rules and regulation and how it works in practice will frustrate people.
One thing we have been discussed that we know now is that the way you used to do business, or you're insisting to do business, has to change. You know, your plans has to change because, you know, the routines and the ways of thinking has changed, as Michael was talking about. So you have to rethink the way you do business. And then people are going to ask me and Michael, where should I start from? And we're going to say from the customer, and we're going to explain why. Michael, do you want to add anything on this one?
No, I think that's fine. I think it's everybody needs to consider a different way of working.
Yeah, I think another thing we know by now is the different degrees of social distancing. Everybody is afraid to be in front of each other to get some of the drops of the damn virus. And that's changing everything. That changed the way you queue, that's changed the way you get to restaurants, that changed the way you go to shops, that changed the way that you walk in a health system, because you need to have a distance. Anywhere in the world, you have like a distance of a chair at least. But then, as I said, when you get the plane, everybody's cramped in the same space. Or when you are in a Marua or in a Danfu in Nigeria, I'm sure that no one's having a space for one, you know, space to another one. No one's respecting that. So, you know, this inconsistent Michael mentioned, we're going to have in mind. But as a business owner, we need to give also to our customers some level of confidence, perception that we are caring about them. So giving a distance, giving kind of alcohol gel or a sanitizer, using masks, special products for them to touch and try that will give them the perception they are safe will be fundamental. But we need to remember the limitations that we have in some markets, and Nigeria is one that Nigerians normally love to touch. I never been saying hi to a Nigerian without someone hugging me and shaking my hand and getting very close. That will change also cultural people, because as I said, I don't think this virus will be gone by March. It's going to take much longer, even with the vaccine. So we're going to have to adapt, and people will be worried. Yeah, some people may say that people in Nigeria will have short memory. I don't think so. I think our lives were so affected that we're also going to be kind of concerned. Over time, it may change, but not so soon. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, no, in fact, yesterday I had an experience where I went into a shop where you scan the items yourself, and the shop provided the tools to clean the scanner and to clean the tools that you were using. And it's essential for you to feel that change of respect from the shop, that they understand that you're concerned about the virus, if you are, but if you're concerned about it, it's reassuring to know that they're taking care of it. And I think all businesses need to just consider how the customer's feeling as they interact with them.
Absolutely. And one thing I like to let people start to think before we end, not every customer is the same. So think about your own customers, the prospects you're looking for. And don't come to this idea that this is the customer I'm looking for. My next question is, do you have the right to look for that customer? So pause on that. Do you have the right to have that customer? We're going to talk about that. So another thing that we notice is that, as I said in the beginning of the conversation, that we have different impacts per sector. And I'm going to go back on this slide here that I presented in April, May. And I would like to say that some of the business that we thought that will be in the yellow, actually they are doing great. So agribusiness is doing great. Financial services, they have probably the best year in many banks for many years. Manufacturing is doing very well, and technology hardware. So all of these are moving to the green side. The people on the red side, unfortunately, they are there. Apparel had much lower sales, auto manufacturers, but auto shops that fix cars are having a great time because people are avoiding major expenses. But leisure tourism, airlines and ocean travel, these sectors are really in trouble. So if you are in agribusiness, manufacturing, technology hardware, financial services, and any one of the green ones, you have a great chance right now. Because if we talk about some of the food retail, even retail online shops, small shops in countries like Nigeria should also do very well, and I'll explain why. All these are growing more than they used to grow. I talked to a supermarket guy from a small town in Brazil just a month ago, and he said to me that he had the best year for many years last year. Michael, do you want to add anything on the previous slide?
No, I think the really interesting thing is the change from April to today and the different view from the medium to green. And I just, like as you mentioned, the agribusiness, the change of, and the necessity for them to adapt to what was going on made them successful. So.
I think another point that you made in the beginning, Michael, that we need to highlight here. People were relying too much on China for manufacturing. So all the countries now are understanding that that caused a problem for a long time in the world. So we see countries like Germany, Italy, Brazil, America, they're starting to call factories to their own countries or to other countries. So they have other sources other than China. So somehow the virus in the long run or in the medium term will have effects on this monopoly of manufacturing in China. So I think that point you made was a very good one. One thing that we knew before the virus and we see around the world is the digital revolution. People moving towards the digital economy. We see that we have now digital banks, we have digital stores. However, I would like to point that in Nigeria, despite we see that, the speed is not what we see in other countries. And that's caused by the lack of infrastructure. I lived in Nigeria for 5 years, and we know the power issues we have. We know the communication issues we have. For you to have an internet of more than 10 megabytes in the country is not easy, and also to be stable. But that's good. It's good for small and medium-sized business, because one of the tendencies that you're going to see that the big businesses are eating alive the small ones in some countries. But in Nigeria, that will be difficult, because the infrastructure, the lack of infrastructure, will move people to shop, to be served by the local shops, by the local service providers. So that's an amazing opportunity for small and medium-sized business in the country. But you're only going to succeed if you start to think your business in a more rational way. And there is a fundamental component for you to start this thought, and is who you're going to serve, to whom you're going to sell. Do you understand this person? Not all customers are the same. The customers you're going to serve will be specific. And you need to understand if your solution, the product you're going to sell, fits that customer or that prospect. You want to add anything, Michael?
No, I think we'll come to the customer in more detail.
So we have some new dynamics in the economy. And the first dynamic we see is what I mentioned. The big companies are becoming bigger. But we see also at the same time a resistance around the world for the communities to start to shop close, look for convenience. Okay? And in Nigeria, if you add that the infrastructure part, or the lack of infrastructure, is an amazing opportunity for you to take advantage of it. So you, a small shopper, a small service provider, has to have in mind what I have to do to serve better my customer. Who are my customers? How I'm going to deal with inflation caused by devaluation? How I'm going to adapt, as Michael said, to the perception on health safety. And that has only one way to go, and we're going to talk about that. You want to say anything on this one, Michael?
No, it's good. I think that's a global to localization shift.
The next one is the smart retail. As Michael said, around the world, you start to have a lot of self-service, people trying to avoid touch stuff. You go to shops around the world, you have alcohol gel everywhere. I go to a restaurant in Madrid or Brazil, you have alcohol gel on the tables. In Madrid now, you only can have 4 people per table and 2 tables apart from each other. Same thing happens in Brazil. And I'm saying these 2 countries because they are the only ones that I was allowed to travel lately. I travel a lot during the year, but I'm talking to Michael in the UK and friends in the US is the same kind of situation. So you start to see a new retail where you can only have so many people in the shop. You have queues in a different way. The people display products is different. And I think that's fundamental for us to think about that in every kind of market or service in Nigeria, because people are afraid, people are concerned. So if you can show a way that you're trying to mitigate the risks, I think is a huge plus for competitive advantage. Michael, do you have anything in mind on this one?
I'd only say in here that, you know, some people are more concerned than others around COVID, and you just need to be mindful of your customers and how they feel, because, you know, the value that you generate from your existing customers. Carlos said something to me yesterday, and it's an old saying, but a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. And you've got these customers, and you know hopefully which ones are valuable, and you need to know how they feel, and therefore you need to think about how you need to modify your service and your product in order to accommodate to their need.
The last trend in the world, and I'm putting here, and I put this last year also because people has a mania on real estate. Okay, what we see in the world today, in big countries like Germany, Ireland, Spain, is that you're starting to have a renters society. Because the salaries dropped so much after the 2007, 2008 crisis, and now with the virus again, people are not having enough wealth to purchase real estate. So the real estate around the world is starting to be concentrated in a few hands of investment funds. And on top of that, apart from some countries in Africa and Asia, the birth rate also is dropping significantly. So the market or the demand is not growing as it used to grow. So you need to be very attuned on that. Maybe Nigeria is a different situation because you have a high birth rate. You're going to have people looking for where to live. In Nigeria, the issue is the documentation, but we can have another discussion on that. But we need to understand that in the world, real estate is becoming concentrated in a hand of a few investment funds. So there's one constant that has not changed. And Michael and I and Bernard start talking, which is the customer. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Michael?
Yeah, I think if I can. So I think, one of the things that we've found that we've done over the years, a lot of work to understand customers in different continents, in different countries. And there is a constant with those customers, and it's a desire for ease of service, ease of purchasing, speed, doing things at a rapid speed for them, and having certainty and confidence. And what they're looking for, regardless, and this is regardless of age, it's across all customers, but they're looking for something that's relevant to them, and something that recognizes and respects them. And those things are constant and all customers are just people. But what changes is their behaviors and attitudes and their perceptions. And it's how you understand that. And it's regardless of the pandemic, actually. It's just how you understand that day to day. So if you think about some of the customers that you deal with, some of them will have very simple, very basic needs that you can fulfill. Others will aspire to be something more than they are today. Some will maybe in a social structure, maybe they want to be in an upper class as opposed to a middle or a working class. And they want your brand or your business to support them in that perception of improvement. Some people will have ethical beliefs and standards that are very strong. And other people will be worried about the future, about security for themselves and for their family. And some will be concerned about COVID and some not so much. The challenge for you guys and for any business owner is to understand which customers that they have. But as well as understanding the customers that they have, there's a piece around understanding the value of the people that they're interacting with.
Yeah, I like to say something on that, Michael, and allow me to jump to the next slide because I think you're covering a lot of we're going to be talking there. I think what you said is fundamental. I have seen Nigeria, a lot of people very much concerned about that guy that stopped a fancy car and was using a fancy suit or a dress in the shop or in the service. Well, is that person really a profitable customer? Maybe a humbler person that goes to your shop every day is much more important to you than you stop everything you're doing to go and serve the oga, as they say, the boss in Nigeria. It's fundamental for you to understand. And just one thing, some small business may say, but how I'm going to do that? Well, I'll tell you. You have 200 people going to your shop every week, let's say. If you engage in a structured way with 20 of them every week to understand which problems they're facing, which concerns they have, what they are looking for, and you start in a very disciplined way, start to register that, you're going to have a very amazing database that will tell you what actually important, what you have to concern in your day-to-day business to gain market share and maintain loyalty. So this is not for big companies only. I'm not talking about data warehouses here and big tech stuff. It's about common sense. It's about having statistical discipline and also a routine to do that. So Michael, back to you. Sorry, I couldn't stop myself.
No, I think it's really important to understand. So that almost wealthy, loud person that brings little value to your business is taking a lot of your time. It may be the data would tell you that quiet, not so wealthy person is actually bringing you most of the value into your business. And it's important that you balance the time that you spend. But I think if you ask yourself a question about what time do you spend to get to know your customer, I think that's a real challenge and should make most people feel uncomfortable, because as an SME, you are probably the owner, the cashier, the stockkeeper, the accountant, the marketing department, the sales and operations department. You've got every role, and you probably struggle for time. And so, but you do need to ask yourself about how much time you're giving to understanding the customer. And I guess that as SMEs, you're probably sitting in one of two categories. You're either struggling to survive, or you're wanting to grow your business. And the question that you should be presented with is, where do you want, or what do you need to invest? How much money, how much time, and where do you need to invest that to get the best margin as a return? And the outcome will be, how much time do you spend? And Carlos said it, just take 20 people, 20 customers on a monthly basis or a weekly basis. How much time do you interact to understand your customers? How much time do you dedicate to making sure that the communication you're doing is targeted to the right people? And how much time do you spend to recognize and respect your customers? And I think those are important challenges for big businesses and smaller businesses as well.
Yeah, there is a bunch of questions that we put here that I would like to tease you guys. It's for you to be successful on opening a business, as Michael said, keep a business and growing it, or even launching new products or propositions. You need to know which customers give you the money. You need to know your customers, because then you can do something fit for them. You need to know what they want to buy. Now that you have inflation, that you're going to have devaluation, you're going to have challenge on replacing your inventory. If you don't know which products they value the most, you will be buying useless stuff. Oh, I always bought that. I don't care. There is not money enough, because inflation is now deteriorate your purchase power. So you have to focus. And the only way to focus is if you know your customer. If on top of that, you can put perceived added values, that will give you more market share. I had this discussion 3 years ago in 2016. Nigeria had a big inflation also that permeated to 2017 and 18. And people were complaining to me, but Carlos, I cannot buy the same amount of products I used to. I said, of course you can't, because you kept your price. The price of the goods you buy are increasing because they are based on dollars, and the naira is devaluing. So you need to understand what's the essential products in your shop that will enable you to keep your customers. Oh, but my competitors are not increasing price. Well, just give them 2 months. They will have to, because otherwise they're not going to be able to replace. So it's essential for you to know your customers, who are the value ones, what they're expecting from you, which products they like the most, so you can make the right decision and cut the right costs when you have to. Don't cut costs because something you knew 3 years ago, because people are cutting this way. Don't move investing on something because it's fashion. You need to know what the right mix, as Michael said. So I'd like to give you guys a slide for Michael to go through it, because he just presented this slide to me yesterday, and I think it was an amazing one.
Yeah, so I think with this, if I ask you just to imagine you were designing a new product, or you were coming up with a new thing for customers, and what's easy
or
to
even
do
a business, right? Even a business.
Yeah, even a business. So, but as a product person, or as a innovative person setting up a business, it's easy to get passionate about a particular product or a particular service. And once you've become entrenched in believing that product's right, you have to work out how much it costs to serve, and therefore what price you can charge. And then you try to find out, what will people use as a buying decision? What will they value in this product that I've invented? And then you have to go and find some customers that actually want to buy it. But imagine you do it the other way around, and you start by being open and listening to the customers and understanding the needs and the gaps and the frustrations that they have. And then you understand the different features that can fulfill those gaps. And therefore you understand the intrinsic value of the product, the business, or the service that you have. And when you know those features, sorry, then you can understand the price that the customer would be prepared to pay, how much they value those individual features, which allows you to understand how much you can pay in terms of cost for each of those features. And then you put it all together as a fabulous proposition for a consumer and a customer. But the beauty of that ending position is you've designed something with a known group of people, with a known problem and issues, who are ready and willing to buy that product. And it's very powerful. But it goes back to what I said at the beginning. If you have a relationship and understand people, then it gives you the ability to have long-term lifetime value with customers and clients, which means, and I think it's very relevant to the second half of the webinar, which is about transgenerational and making businesses last for a great deal of time. And the one thing I think I didn't say, which I wanted to say, was as you develop products or as you develop your business, the one thing that we would advocate is to have an approach around champion and challenger. You've got a fantastic product or a fantastic business, but you need to understand how people are changing and test new things with them and record the data. And when you find something that's really successful, allow it to help your business to adapt and change to the new customer attitudes and new customer perceptions that you have.
Just let me sell our book here. We do talk a lot about champion and challenger techniques in the book, which is basically how you try new propositions, new products, new business without spending lots of money and being quite fast on doing that. But the last message I would like to say is if you haven't changed to be a customer-centric person, you have to be now. Do not continue resisting, because that will make it much more expensive and painful for you to adjust to the new world. So we have faced these challenges, Michael and I. We made a partnership with Benito. So if anyone want to talk to us, you have here our website. And to contact us in Africa, Nigeria, please do that through Benito Africa Consulting. You have their detail there. Michael, do you want to say anything before we depart? Because we're at 5 minutes above time.
If I can, I just wanted to just say I've got 6 bullet points that I've been writing as we've spoke, Carlos.
Please do that. I'll go back here.
But what Carlos, I think, has said is you need to know and understand your customer, their issues, their problems, and their needs, and have a statistical discipline that supports the understanding that you've created, and then build your business and modify your business based on that discipline. Use a champion challenger approach, and if anything, test, and test again, and be disciplined to keep in touch with your customers on a regular basis so that you're informed about any changes that are happening. And if anything, to be successful, value your valuable customers. And I'll go back to that saying that we mentioned earlier, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. So you know your valuable customers, make sure that you understand them and look after them.
Thank you, Michael. So back to you, Bernard.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Now,
can hear you.
yeah, now we can. I was not hearing anything. Now I am.
Oh, apology. We're working on it. It's one of the issues we face when we decide to go digital, but we're getting better. Right, thank you very much, Carlos and Mikael, for this insightful session. I learned a lot. I think for me as an entrepreneur, I think I might have to go back to my drawing board to ensure that we fit into the time and the purpose of which we've set up our businesses. One of the insight that I got from the numerous stuff you said is the fact that if we're actually going to succeed, if we're going to succeed in this time, we must start our product design through the customer. So it must be customers' product design, i.e. at the point where we're designing the service of the product, it must be that the customer is part of the session. And secondly, one of the things I picked up is the fact that it shouldn't be all about what I think as a business owner. It should be all about what the customer thinks. So we must stand up from our seat as a CEO or as a managing director, head of businesses, and we go meet the customer to hear what the customer said. I mean, this is also speaking to a video we're going to be sharing to you much more later. And the question we're going to be asking you in the video is, are you listening to the customer? Now, having said that, if you're truly listening to the customer, it definitely connotes that a lot of things that the customers are saying you're putting into practice. That also gives me the insight of saying that in the nearest future, when you go back to your archive, you'll be able to recall how you started. And that is also to say that you are building a transgenerational business. And to speak to us on the concept of transgenerational business, I have with me here this morning and this afternoon in Nigeria, morning in the UK. I think it's also afternoon in Dubai, because I have a couple of people that are in from Dubai and in Dublin. Mr. Kola happens to be the managing director of GDL. GDL happens to be one of the top leading investment company in Nigeria with a mindset of building wealth. The mindset of building, what I can tell you, I can testify to a couple of things that they are doing. I mean, Benito as a company, we've learned a lot from GDL. I got a couple of support. Someone will say maybe because you are getting business from GDL. No, not exactly that. But I can tell you, the bedrock of which we're building our business on happens to be insight that we got from the GDL business model. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome with us this afternoon Mr. Kola to take us on the concept of transgenerational business model. Thank you, Mr. Kola.
Good afternoon. Let me be sure that I'm being heard clearly. Am I clear?
Yes, you're clear, sir.
Yes, you're clear.
Yes, you are.
All right.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. I should also thank Carlos and Mike. That was a very good presentation. So I'm a student, but Benito has insisted that I also be a facilitator in this class. My strength and background is not in imparting knowledge and sharing experiences on customer service, but in a sense, we are all in the business of serving customers if we must do well. And so I've been asked today to introduce a perspective in our conversation, which relates to how to ensure that our businesses last for generations. And if you permit me, I'll just try and share my slide, if you'll give me a minute.
Please, can everyone mute the mic?
Hi, Mikhail. Can Mikhail hear me?
Right.
Okay, brilliant.
I hope you can see my slide.
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay, I've been asked to talk on building transgenerational businesses. And because what I want to say is important, I think it's good to do the commercials ahead. So I leave you with important matters when I'm signing out. Benito has already done that. I run a company called Growth and Development Limited. We have 3 licenses in finance from the CBN, asset management, and stockbroking. Our vision is to create wealth and transform society. And we seek to do that by evolving financial solutions which strengthen and expand the middle class. For societies to do well, the middle class must grow. And the middle class in Nigeria has been significantly thinned down, and we need to find a way to grow the middle class. We live our values. We have 6 values with the acronym IRI. The I standing alone for integrity. And we don't pay, we don't take. I'm sure you know what that means. And we are firmly persuaded that developing nations such as Nigeria will only transform if they migrate up the emphasis that they put on integrity. We are audacious. We've set targets which are daring. We focus on results. To serve the customer, we try and innovate. We have a strong social conscience, and we have an entrepreneurial spirit. You know, saying it very simply, we believe that values matter. And we say that GDL's vision is that when a company has the right values, it can make a contribution to society. And we think it's important in a place like Nigeria. As Carlos pointed out in his presentation, in financial services, it is starting to emerge from the last 2.5 decades of the last century, and also the first 2 decades of this century, that it appears that financial services are positively correlated with crisis, except it's crisis that is limited to the financial sector. So we're starting to experience growth. I think in last year, we've probably tripled our assets under management. We started the year at about under 6 billion. We ended close to 16 billion. And we're probably having margins and profits for that year that may aggregate what we did for the previous 3 to 5 years. But beyond profit, we are also focusing on our core mandate. I hope I can be heard. Are you hearing me?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Thank you. We are also focusing on what is key. You know, one thing we've told ourselves is that if we end this decade as a very big financial institution with assets under management of over 1 trillion naira, but we have not had impact in growing the middle class, for us it will still be failure. So one product we are hoping to launch this year is a fund which over a 15-year period will seek to create 100,000 owner-occupier homes on an affordable but a sufficient quality basis. So building transgenerational businesses. Do you remember these businesses? Bata was established in 1932. Kingsway is a leading departmental store that was established in 1948. Concord newspaper was established in 1979. Digestives, McVitie's, the biscuit was established in the 70s, and Okada Hair was established in 1983. Do you remember them? Some people here may not even know that they ever existed. These are Nigerian businesses. What has happened to them? Now, these are some famous global companies. This data is 2 years dated, but the point is still the same. Zara was founded in 1975, around about the same time as some of these businesses like Concord and Digestives. Now, at the time we checked, Zara was 26.7 billion in revenues, $3.2 billion in profit. Apple, $215 billion in revenue, $45 billion in profit. Virgin Atlantic, $3.5 billion in revenues, $814 million in profit. Buttons Foods, $338 million in revenue, $230 million in profits. Amazon, $136 billion. I think this must be 338 billion. 136 billion in profit, $2.4 billion in profit. These are global companies that are from 1975 to date, which is 45 years. Some of them are actually under 30 years. And these are significant, big brands, big impacts, high labor employers, significant impact on their domestic economies, and have made their founders rich. and made their founders successful. Now, what do they have in common? Bata, when I was growing up, the lower middle class, and to except the middle class, bought school shoes from Bata. Bata no longer exists in terms of providing shoes. It was founded in 1932. Zara, which has some fashion lines, has grown. So they're somewhat in the same sector. Okada Air, Virgin Atlantic. There may be people, if people were born after 1980 here, they may not even know about Okada Air. But that was a popular local airline. Kingsway was the place to go to shop for the middle class, the top middle class, and in fact, the high class when we were growing up. Their stores were a part of what used to be a conglomerate, the UAC Group. It was founded in 1948. Amazon has created a new model for shopping. Kingsway is gone. We don't see these biscuits, these McVitie's or digestives again. And compared to bottom food, we have a problem in Nigeria that businesses, transgenerational businesses, are very few. You can count on the number of probably 2 fingers businesses with turnover in excess of 10 billion naira that are more than 50 years old. And that's a big problem. So today we have to ask ourselves, where will eTransact be in 30 years? Or Glow, or Ando, or Innocent Vehicle, or Coscaris Group, or Elizade Motors? Much more importantly, the question that this slide has not asked is, where will your business be in 30 years' time? Where will your business be in 50 years' time? Where will your business be in 20 years' time? Now, what studies have revealed is that failure rates of small businesses and startups is high globally. The literature generally tends to say that a 70% failure rate for startups is not unusual. 30% of new businesses fail during the first 2 years of being open. 50% of new businesses fail during the first 5 years, and only 25% of new businesses make it to 15 years. So if you are here and your business is at least 15 years, we need to clap for you and congratulate you. Now, the growth cycle of startups or young businesses, what we have put here as it's just our perception of how businesses grow. There is a startup phase, and then there is a stability phase, and there is an institutional phase. In the startup phase, the business is struggling to get market share. It has challenges in generating sufficient operational cash flow, and access to funding is a big challenge. As it starts to move to the stability phase, it starts to generate considerable revenue, and it starts to see close to sufficient liquidity, and there is more ease in having access to funding. Now, if it moves from the stability to the institutional phase, you see, the transition from startup to stability is a lot more dependent on how the business succeeds in winning over market forces, winning in the marketplace, and conquering exogenous variables. It is much more to do with how the business responds to the environment and succeeds in its mandate. But the movement from stability to institutional phase is much more about internal decisions which the leadership makes. So we start to institutionalize, the founders start to talk about succession planning. They start to think about improved governance, and they start to think about enlarging the ownership breaks in a way that will make for sustainability and being transgenerational. Now, the market doesn't impose this. It is leadership that makes a decision to make this happen. To be stable, you must be successful with the market. To be an institution, you make a decision that having succeeded with the market, you want to create an institution. And the market will not insist, but the market will punish you for the consequences of not doing it. We put Nigerian companies in 5 categories: the blue chips and the very large corporates. We say 90% of those are institutions. And then there are those which are large corporates. We estimate that 70% of them are institutions. Then the national corporates, 50% are institutions. The emerging national corporates, 20%. The SMEs and the one-man businesses, you know, are where becoming institutions is very rare, and they're probably not even ripe. Now, the risks of survival is the SMEs, the emerging national corporates, and the national corporates are much, much, much more at risk. The large corporates, as you go down, there is a greater risk of survival. And just in terms of characteristics, you know, this is our classification. It's not written in any book. You know, the national corporates, we say those are the ones that are 10 to 50 billion. The reason why we've joined to national corporates is this is about MSMEs. So we're not talking about blue chips and national large corporates. We're talking about what SMEs will do to become stable and then become national, imagine national corporates and become national corporates. This is not a session for large corporates and very large corporates. So we think that when your turnover is somewhere between 10 to 50 billion, you are a national corporate. And these are the characteristics. They usually have net margins over 10%. Their management strength is average, i.e., they will have broadened management beyond the founders, and 1 or 2 functional areas. Well, I mean, some functional areas will definitely have very strong leaders, you know, marketing and human resources, you know, and they will typically have the CFO. You know, they may be very robust, you know, or at least minimally robust, but it has evolved. They will have strong cash flows. The capital structure is not perfect. There is usually some over trading because they're growing and they don't have as much equity. They've grown some equity from reserves, but the capital structure, while not acceptable, while not strong, is acceptable. The governance is usually from poor to average, and where they are in the governance spectrum is what determines whether after some time they will collapse, which is what has been happening in many Nigerian companies. They become stable, but rather than move to the institutional phase, they collapse. Governance is crucial. Then they start to become attractive to banks. So they start to borrow at rates better than they used to. They're usually aged over 15 years, and the ownership can be Asian, Nigerian, or, you know, or sole Nigerian entrepreneurs. The publicly available financial statements may often not reflect the true financial position. There are exceptions. Here is where ethics and integrity comes again, and I'll come to that. The emerging national corporates are those from 2 to 5 billion, 2.5 billion to 10 billion, you know, and 5 to 10% net margins. Management is still dominated by the founder. Cash flow is average. Capital structure is still weak because there is even a lot more overtrading. Poor to average governance. There is access to bank credits, but they will usually insist on assets, the assets of the owner, outside of the business as collateral. They may be over 10 years, and the issues with statements and ownership are the same. Then you have the SMEs anywhere under $1 billion, from 100,000 naira to $1 billion. Low margins usually, one-man management, low cash flows and highly volatile, very minimal separation between business and personal finances. You know, the money is, it's very tough. There's poor governance. It's a one-man business. There's limited access to bank loans. Sometimes they have to borrow from family. It can be any age. You know, some businesses have been several years and have remained disabled. Ownership is usually Nigerian families or sole Nigerian entrepreneurs. What we are saying is that we have seen in Nigeria, these small businesses grow to the stability phase, but somehow collapse. The huge businesses led by Sir Odumegu Ojujoku, we don't see it again. The tire factories and rubber plantations of Adeola Odutola, we don't see it again. My own up-country town, Chief Omole, the businesses which he left behind, we don't see it again. You know, and it is important if we're going to conquer poverty. Transgenerational businesses are key. One review we did said that the Fortune 500 companies, often account for almost 50% of the GDP of the countries in which they are resident. Companies which have succeeded and have been around for a long time are important. So why do companies, if a lot of companies already fail before they become stable, it is crucial that companies reach stability, but what's more important than when they reach stability, they do not go back into failure. Why do companies that have transited from startup phase to stability phase fail? I won't talk about poor leadership. One is failure to create proper business systems. You know, and the one I want to focus on, please permit me, being a finance person, and which I want to encourage people to focus on, there's poor leadership, failure to create proper business, wrong cash out financing strategy, lack of access to funding, lack of enabling business. For want of time, small businesses need to create a discipline around how the owner manager reward himself. In the early days of the business, it's okay not to have a salary. And it's okay for your personal finances and business finances to be mixed. The discipline is to determine that time when the business has reached the stage where you put yourself on a salary and you separate the finances of the business from your personal finances. And then you identify the stage where when you have needs, rather than take cash out of a business, pay yourself a dividend. And the reason why you are doing that formally is that you are setting yourself up for when you will attract others to buy 20–30% of a business for a very good price. If there is any point I want to make, and it is known all over the world, but it has not been assimilated in Nigeria, there are extremely few businesses, successful businesses, that can reward the entrepreneur and founder with cash as much as the market can, even if all you sell is a small percentage. And I'm going to show that, you know, so the wrong cash out financing is one of the major reasons why businesses fail. People think an entrepreneur that has worked hard has a right to live well, but don't kill the proverbial goose that lays the golden egg. Don't milk the cow until it dies. And the way out is when your business has succeeded, institutionalize. Allow for checks and balances, block leakages, increase growth prospects, and enhance access to funding. I want to give an example of a company to show what I was saying. Fitsin is a one-man business founded by a Nigerian in the pharmaceutical space, and the Nigerian pharmaceutical industry is not, the fundamentals itself are not so strong. But today, the last balance sheet that Fitsin sent to the stock exchange, all the cash it has is 303 million. So if the founder wants to take all the cash out of a business today, if it takes more than 303 million, the business will have not one single kobo left. But the market capitalization of the shares of that company is 12.6 billion. So if Dr. Ayeba wants 2 billion naira just to take care of himself and his family, he can sell some of his shares on the market at 2.6 billion and does not take a penny out of business. Please grow your business with this in mind. So the approach we suggest to you is that you set strategic objectives, you strengthen manage, you set strategy that this is the, after serving this business for 10, 15, 20 years, this is how much money I need to live well. And then you use that to build back on the kind of plans and size. That two important things. How much of this business am I comfortable to sell? 20%, 30%. How much is the minimum amount I want to get for that 20, 30%? X amount. Then what kind of sales and profit do I need to achieve that? And so those are strategic objectives. You strengthen accounting. Your books should be, you should know how much money you are making. Many entrepreneurs don't know the difference between cash flow and profit. When you are struggling at startup phase, it's okay. When you are approaching stability, even if it's an accountant that comes in at the end of the month to help you write your books, you should have your books. Start to strengthen management. The next stage after strengthening accounting is your business should get to a stage where 2 or 3 key functions have people who are almost as capable of you, preferably more capable than you. You know, marketing and customer service and the financial function are key. And then you can broaden beyond that. Then you diversify debt financing. Now, this is when you're starting to say, okay, you've accepted the concept of being institutional, and at some point you may sell some shares to the public. Ask your financial advisor whether they can get you a little debt from institutional investors, not just from your banks. Then strengthen governance. Have a board that you submit to, a board of experienced people. I run GDL. My chairman does not have 1 share in GDL yet, but she is a seasoned board guru. She insists that we do things right. She served on the board of a transnational bank. She's co-founder of a major IT, perhaps a leading IT company in Nigeria, from which she's retired. Then make sure you plan succession. And then at some point, you divest and cash out. You can sell 20, 30% of a business, and the interest on that takes care of you for a long time. Now, because of time, I'm going to leave this presentation with Benito. We have, in GDL, we're very concerned about the middle class. And why we keep preaching this business, why we accepted the challenge of talking about transgenerational businesses, is that countries that have more transgenerational businesses tend to have a larger middle class. Because the transgenerational businesses create jobs that pay middle income salaries. And those middle income salaries means people have more spending power. And it means the economy is more stable. So because it's customer service, I thought I should just make a point. How does all of this connect with customer service? Transgenerational businesses are financially strong. And to be financially strong often requires significant market share and appreciable margins. And in order to achieve this, it requires strong focus. As I stop sharing, and I want to hand over to Benito, let me say something that you should start to think about. And that is, you must think about scale. You must think about your business not remaining a micro or a small business. If you are going to be transgenerational, some scale is important. So that's very long term. 3 things I just want to say based on some of the things I also picked from Carlos and Michael. So the long term thing you must think about how to scale so that your business has scale. Number 2 is opportunistic. In these times, when there is COVID and there has been trouble, there are 2 things. Be on the lookout for the high profit opportunities that the COVID distress is creating. That's very opportunistic. And then the 3rd thing I want to plead with us in Nigeria, the new normal is both opportunistic and long-term. Please, let's not return to exactly the same work arrangements we had before COVID. Given the almost criminal neglect of transport facilities, I think some of us have now found that we can be as productive by working some days at home and some days in the office. You know, let's take some of the pressure off the roads. Let's improve the quality of life of ourselves and some of the staff, strengthen the bonds by honestly answering the question, even post-COVID, in what ways can our work arrangement change to improve quality of life? I hope with these few minutes, I've encouraged you to see the need to commit to scaling your business, reaching stability, and then moving it from being stable to becoming an institution so that it can be transgenerational. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayeye. I'm truly honored to have this great man coming up with us to share this insight. There are some questions he asked, and I'm very sure a lot of us that run business today would have been asking ourselves the question, would you be alive, or would your business be alive in the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? When you made mention of data, I remember the first time my mom got a school standard. It was a bata, and I think I wore that bata, which is a bata. You know, the bata, we call it bata. I wore it for about 3-4 years, and it was because the plan around building such system then was to have a transgenerational business. But unfortunately, I think some behavior which we mistakenly deployed led to the end of bata. And I am truly blessed, and I know a lot of us, we've actually been able to learn one or two things. Thank you very much, Mr. Ayeye. Okay, so we will be coming to the end of the session in some minutes, but I'd like to say, if you have questions, please do us a favor by dropping your questions in form of a chat online. We'll pick it up and then we'll throw it to the facilitator. Yeah, and for some of us that want to have a copy of this webinar, we would appreciate if you could drop your email address on the chat too, so we could send it to you. For those of you that fill the form online, we will drop it. However, if you know you never dropped your detail online, it would interest you to drop your detail this morning. Shortly before we go to the question and answer, I would like to share a video with us. I'm very sure this will help you to understand the importance of the man at the center of your business, the customer. Right, thank you very much. You can see there are a couple of questions in that video, which I think every one of us should ask ourselves if truly we're ready to serve the customer. One of the insights that Mr. Ayeye shared with us is the fact that if we don't have the customer at the center of our affair, we might be losing business, and as such, we will pack up. You know, and that's why it's very important to ask yourself those questions. And if you think you need some support to ensure that you answer the questions of those questions effectively, Benito Consulting will be available to help you to do this. What we do is to build MSME. We build your brand, we build your dream, and we make it a reality. And we are both in Nigeria, we're in the UK, we're in Dublin, and we are trying to spread across. We're setting up a data system in South Africa very soon. We know the people in South Africa will be part of it. Our focus for the UK market is actually to empower the black race in the UK market. And I know a lot of Nigerians, because of the globalization and the digital, we see Nigerians that sit in Nigeria and they make a lot of millions in the UK, and we want to help you to get that done. We will be answering some of the questions that people have dropped. Some people sent me questions privately, some questions were sent online. But before we do that, I'd like to share a few tips with us. If you can see my screen, I use the word, I said, whereas customer-centric companies are 60% more profitable compared to that or those that focus on product. One of the problems we have in Africa is that our business model is always towards selling product. You don't care about what the customer wants. It's all about the product. I was in a store a couple of days ago and I wanted to buy a machine. I knew what I wanted to buy, but because this guy knows that he's going to make a lot of money from what he wants to sell, he was forcing me. As a matter of fact, I would say this guy was trying to jazz me to ensure that I buy. For Carlos and Mikel, what jazz means is perhaps you want to use some authority or some forces on me to ensure I buy this product. And at the end of the day, I ended up not buying anything from him. And I think these are some of the things we're doing. Like Mr. Yaya said, we are in a season where there are opportunities. Are you paying attention to the customers who will give you the opportunity? Are you stepping out of your comfort zone to go know what exactly the customer wants? Until you have an idea of what the customer wants, you shouldn't go to the market to produce. It is wrong. You will lose money. But when you know what the customer wants, even at a very high price, the customer will pay. So like you inform you that there are some steps you should take. And one of the steps you should take is to ensure that the culture you build in your business is towards the customer. Build a culture that satisfies the customer. Let everything be around the customer. I recall Richard Branson sharing a talk with us, and he said the company gave all the staff $2,000 to go extra mile to please the customer. Meaning, if you take an aircraft and perhaps you are in a business class, and unfortunately you're uncomfortable, not because you want to be uncomfortable, but because perhaps they made a mistake. What the company is going to do is to move you to first class at no cost. What it means is that when you are happy at a point in time, you will tell the other customer. The second thing is, at the point of recruiting your staff, make sure you recruit based on the need of your customer. How do I mean? If you find out that the man that you're recruiting has all the knowledge, all the skill, but does not know how to relate with customer, it's an error to train that person. It's an error to recruit that person. So the first thing you should ensure you do is that at the point of recruiting your staff, build a system that selects the right man that knows how to meet customers' needs. The third thing you should do as a CEO, get out of your comfort zone. Yes, your employee were hired to make life easy for you, but when it comes to meeting customers' needs, you cannot give all the job to your employee. Be at the forefront of the mission. Ensure you speak to customer one-on-one. It's called customer engagement. Shut the door of your office for at least one day. Move to the market and hear what the customer is saying. When you hear what the customer is saying, you are likely not going to be deceived by your employee. But when you fail to hear what the customer is saying, your employees will deceive you. And lastly, listen to your customers. Listen to your customer. These folks are talking every point in time, but are you listening? Are you listening? According to the video that we watched, the question is, until you listen, you are likely not going to get the best, even from your own vision. I'd like to say this to everyone here this afternoon. MSME in Nigeria is going to build the nation. If every one of us ensure we build our businesses to keep working and keep alive, we will build a nation and we will reduce poverty. So for me, our vision in Benito Consulting is to empower MSME. Is to take you from small, micro, small, and medium to the global class. And I know this is going to happen. In order to support you to get this done, we're going to be launching a challenge. It's called Customer Satisfaction Challenge. Customer Satisfaction Challenge. We'll share the detail with every one of you guys. I've sent this to you. At the end of the challenge, we're going to be releasing about 5 million opportunity to boost your business in the market. We're going to be owning your business for you on the social media. Most of the local telecommunication are going to be part of us. And one of the things I can assure you is that if you could get this right, our mission is to build your customer base. Our mission is to change your brand via what the customer says. But at the end of the day, I can guarantee you, within the next 1 year, you're going to be increasing your profitability with more than over 1,000%. So like I said, we're just going to be attending some of the questions because we're running behind our time. We promise we're going to have a session for 1 hour 30 minutes, which connotes that we will be ending this session by 1:30. However, permit us to just take a few questions
before we call it a day. Mr. John asked a question. If I need to build a customer-centric culture in my business, and I'm running a 3-man business, how do I convince my partners to do the same thing? I don't know if, Mikkel, the question is, I think this business owner run a partnership business with 3 other people, and he's saying if he needs to build a customer-centric business, which is very expensive, a customer-centric culture in a business is very expensive. If he needs to build it, how would he convince his partner to do the same thing or to join him in this vision?
Sorry, I would not say that building a customer business is very expensive to start with. Okay, in life, everything we need to build in a simple and humble manner. Okay, when I go to do transformations like I did in Nigeria, I never told people in my first day what my plans were, because if I show, they're gonna say I was a lunatic. Okay, so you start small, you start with targets that can be achievable, and as you grow, you look back in 3 years, you say, gee, what I built was really complex. So my advice is the first thing you need to do is to find a simple way for you to have a relevant sample of your customers, for you to interact with them with discipline, interact with them in a constant basis, and you record that, asking the right questions. And the right questions are always related with problems, issues, anxiety, dreams people have on their day-to-day life, and also related to what you trade, what you serve about. You'll see that people are going to start to give you quite spontaneous answers, and you should not drive any answer. Okay, that's why I am against any of these quantitative researches that you put 3,000 people in a questionnaire, and actually that is driven for the answers you want. So it's better to go qualitative, and you have, in a very relaxed environment, conversation with your customers. If you have a small shop, you can even do that in the shop, but you know in your mind what are the 3, 4, 5 things you're trying to get from them, and you start to collect that, and then you start to make an analysis between what they say to you and what you're actually delivering, what you're actually investing, and you start to adapt your customer and your business. Of course, gradually you're going to be starting to try to get data from the transactions itself. That's when it starts to become more complex. But that can be done with many sources. You can do with the history of purchase, with the history of channels, the frequency of contact. That's the next level. And with that, you can start to group people. Then later, you can start doing that in Excel. You're going to have to do that in a data storage. And we'll start to build, hypotheses. And that's when the champion and challenger that Michael mentioned comes in place, because you start to see things, you start to understand, you start to have what Michael called insight, and you say, well, that's different than what I do. But you're not going to change your whole business on day 0. You're going to do a test, a control test environment to see if the insight you got will give you more sales, more loyalty, a better margin. If it does, then you shift your business entirely towards that. So it's not an answer that I can answer here in 3 minutes, but what I'll say is not expensive. Think simple, start simple, but the most important thing is you get a relevant sample of your weekly visiting or trading customers, engage with them in a very honest way, let them talk. This is a 2-year exercise, 1 mouth, as Michael used to say. So I think you're gonna be quite surprised where you're gonna get. Michael, you wanna add anything?
I was just going to say that I certainly don't think it's an expensive approach. I think the expensive approach is not being customer centric. If you don't understand the needs of the customer, the channels that they want to use, the way that they want to purchase, you will waste more money. And I'll just give you I'll give you 2 examples, I think, if I can, very quickly. But one of the exercises we did was we looked at a group of customers who were losing a business typically $100 a year. And we had an insight session, very, very low cost, just conversations with customers. As Carlos said, a very small start, just to understand the needs and wants and frustrations of those groups of customers, and introduced a proposition which turned from a negative $100 into just short of $100 profit. That's a $200 difference. And there wasn't a massive expense. There wasn't a massive resource pull. It was just changing the proposition by understanding those customers. And another one was a larger organization, granted, but a large organization was looking to build contact centers for 1 million plus customers. And they were at the point of putting plans together to build 5 contact centers. And some of the analysis that we did with the business, we explained to them through the insight and through the data that actually of the 1 million customers, only 5 to 6% of those customers were going to call, and their need was for 1 or maybe 1.5 contact center volume. And so it saved them the money of building 3 contact centers so that they could reinvest in the proposition and the service in the right channels. So I think short-sighted, it appears to be expensive, but actually long-term, it's incredibly profitable for the organization. But it's sitting down with Bernard, in answer to your question, you have to sit down with the 3 owners and you have to talk about why they're doing what they're doing as an organization or as a business and what they want to achieve. And you have to take time out of the business to talk about that, but not at massive cost.
And also, Michael, you can always start with samples.
Yes.
So you can do a sample, you can focus on a proposition, you make your point, and then you see the return it's providing you. But what I'm trying really hard to do here today with you guys is to give examples for a one-shop man. How can a one-shop man can actually be customer-centric? I don't like to think that only big companies can be customer-centric, only companies that can have a huge IT, a huge team of people that can do complex statistical algorithms, that will have a massive data warehouse. No, that's just a myth, okay? Customer-centric is about discipline, is about using even rudimentary tools for you to gather meaningful data from customers. I am totally against this vision that for you to be customer-centric, it will be expensive and complex. Yes, over the years becomes expensive and complex somehow because your company starts to grow so much, you have to have such a huge base of customers that you have to manage that. But when you see the added value, it's actually quite cheap.
All right, thank you very much, Carlos. The added value is actually quite cheap. So I'll also say that if you truly want to have a transgenerational business, then you must start to become a customer-centric business today. And that's where the story will change. Another question I've got here, how do I carry out a customer engagement that is effective and cheap? Should it be digital and or physical? First of all, I'd like to say, if you have the opportunity to, make it physical and digital.
Well,
for most,
so can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead, Carlos.
I don't know. Who is your base? Michael just said that the guys want to open 5 call centers. They only need 1.5. What you want to do doesn't matter. I don't give a damn about the opinion of the owner of the executive. I want to know about the customer. If you are in an environment when you have elderly people very resistant to be digital, why on earth you're going to spend a penny in digital? Makes no sense whatsoever. But if you are in a university campus that everybody's digital, why on earth you're going to waste time on putting people there? So my point is, go back to what you're saying here. Think, talk, know your customer first before you make any decision. Don't follow fashion. Don't follow trends. That is stupidity. You need to understand who you serve, who you sell, and then that's how you're going to make your investment decisions. Because, oh, my neighbor is totally digital, but he has a bunch of youngster customers. Your customers love your tradition. They love the cut of your clothes because it reminds what they used 20 years ago. Why are you going to move digital? Oh, but what about my future? That's another discussion. If you want to say that your customer will be dying in 20 years, okay, that's a fair question. That's a fair challenge. But then you need to build another brand. Don't build a extension line. That's another big mistake. And I talk about that on my book. Brand extension is a mistake. Because a brand works for traditional elderly people doesn't mean it's going to work for youngsters. And then they put this brand inside, brand plus, new brand. That's BS, guys. That doesn't work. You need to start to build something that fits in the hearts and minds of people. Sorry to interrupt, but it's all about the customer. I'm sorry about that.
Right, thank you very much, Carlos. It's all about the customer. It's truly all about the customer. Like the video said, are you listening to the customer? And I have another question here. I want to build a customer-centric culture. Where do I start from? Where do I start from? Carlos, do you want to help with that?
Well, I can share that with Michael. You have to start listening to the customer. First of all, you need to be humble enough to understand that you may understand your business, the dynamic of the business, but you do not control customers' behavior. That's the first thing you need to understand. Steve Jobs used to say to his people, you are not paid to think for my customers and our customers. You are paid to engage with them, understand their problems, their issues, their concerns, and then you go and build a solution. And that is very important. Don't ask your customer to build the solution. They don't know. If Ford will ask the customers when he create the Model T what the problem was, they will say that I need a faster and a way to move from A to B. And they're going to say that that will be a chariot with 8 horses because they couldn't see a car. Okay? So the point we have to have in mind is this. The customer engagement is to understand their concerns, their problems, their dreams. Once you understand that, you create an insight. And the insight say, oh, gee, I'm missing that. Oh, I'm investing too much money in call center. I've been talking to my guys in a very posh way. My guys are being screaming in the phone, or my people don't smile, or my product doesn't cover this problem. That's the insight you're going to get. The moment you get the insight, you have to sit down and design the solution. And because solutions not always are 100% correct, or I'll say in the majority of the times, you have to have the ability to test. And that's where champion and challenger comes on board. You have your champion that you sell today. Your insight told you that you have to shift, change some aspects of it. So what you do is you select a meaningful sample of a geography or a group of people, and you provide that to them, and you see the response. If the response of the challenger is better than the champion, you shift. The challenge became the champion, and the company start to produce more effective or with less cost or with a better price or a better return and recurrence of sales. That's, I don't know if I answered, but that's how it is.
Thank you very much, Carla. I think you put some light in that. Thank you very much. My last question here. Someone is asking, can an external company help to do a customer engagement session? Can an external company, Carlos, the question is, can an external company, can you outsource customer experience?
Okay, yeah. Let me tell you guys, you guys are having the privilege to talk to probably one of the top 5 guys in customer insight, okay, in the world, which is Michael Solid. Okay, Michael Solid was the global head for HSBC in that aspect. He has been traveling all around the world, running focus groups, engagement sections, and insight sections, okay? He's an amazing guy. He's part of our team. He can help anyone that want to do that. So the answer is yes. You have companies that can do Smarter Way is one of them. We partner with Benito. We can help people on that for sure.
Right, thank you very much, Carlos. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys. It's been an amazing session. I can say to you that today I've not wasted 2 hours of my time at all, because there's some insight that I've been able to draft down, and I know it's going to take me to the next phase of our business in Benito. I want to say a big thank you to every one of you guys that have spent your data that I remember I was talking to a colleague of mine, and I said to him, we're going to spend about 1 hour, 30 minutes. You know what he said to me? Guy, I want to spend 1 hour, you want to spend 1 hour, 30 minutes out of my small data. Are you going to pay me back? Yes, it's online now, and I can say to you that we've been able to pay you back. Normally, if you're supposed to pay for this session, you would not be paying less than £500. £500. I was in the UK a couple of weeks ago to get this kind of a training, and I don't want to share with you how much I paid for this session. So it's expensive. I know you've spent some time and some resources, but guess what? I know you've been able to get value for this. Like I said to you a couple of minutes ago, that we're going to be having a challenge, which is just to buttress exactly what the session we've had today, to help MSME grow. And the challenge is to focus on your customer. So we want to force you to focus on your customer. I think that online now, there's a challenge going on, which I'm not in support of, but there's this challenge that you want to be part of. And this challenge is going to take you to the next level, the next stage of your business, revenue-wise, customer database-wise, and then brand perception-wise. And as soon as we launch it, we're going to be sharing with you, and it's going to go public. It will be an interesting thing if you're going to be part of it. Once again, I want to say thank you to Mr. Kola Ayeye for the awesome session we had with him. I can tell you that for me, one of my dreams is to see Benito last the next 100 years. Then I would have gone. I don't want to be more than 100 years. So I mean, it's not like I don't have faith, but when you're older than you should be, it's abnormal. Thank you, Mr. Kola, for those insights I've taken up. Thank you, Carlos Wendely. I appreciate the support. It's expensive. Normally, if you're going to have a session with Carlos and Mikel in the UK, at a minimum, a session with them is £2,000. A session with them, 2005, but as we speak today, you're not paying a dime, and you've had 1 hour, 30-minute session with them. It's amazing. I want to say thank you to you, Carlos, and everyone. And thank you to the engineer behind the scene. We have a couple of them here. We have Mr. Chooks and Ms. Tegny and some other people online. I want to say thank you to you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the session. One thing I want to ask you, and it's in 2 questions. Is your business valuable? Can someone pay for it? Can someone pay for your product? If you decide to increase the price today, would they still go after it? The second question is, are you going to be in existence in the next 20 years? If you can answer those questions, then we are in it together. But if you cannot answer the question, come and pick up your phone, your email address, or your chatbot, and send a message to Benito Consulting in Africa, or send a message to Smarterway UK, and then we'll take you to the next level. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you.